Ever feel like when you're building software, it's like starting from scratch every single time?
Yeah, like reinventing the wheel.
Right. Wouldn't it be amazing if someone just handed you the basics all set up and ready to go? Like, here's how users log in, here's how you manage data.
Like a logo set, but for code. That's a great analogy.
Exactly. And that's what today's deep dive is all about. We're looking at ABP Framework.
And we're talking .NET applications specifically.
You got it. Now, for our listeners who are into how things are built, this framework claims to make building these applications faster and more efficient. We're going behind the scenes of an ABP Community Talk to really unpack this, and it's not just theory. We'll hear from the Volasoft team, the folks who created it, and a real company that's using it to build some really cool stuff.
What I find fascinating is this whole trend towards frameworks and software development. Yeah.
It's not just about saving time, although that's a huge part of it. It's about getting a head start on good architecture, the structure of your software from the get-go.
So for our listener who may not be deep in the code, imagine this. Instead of spending weeks, maybe even months, on those basic building blocks of your software, what if that was just done? User authentication, account management, all that stuff, that's what ABP Framework does. It gives you those pre-built components so you can jump right into the heart of your project, the unique stuff.
Think of it like this. You're a chef, right? And you walk into a kitchen and everything's prepped. Your ingredients are measured out. Your knives are sharpened. You still create the dish that's your app, but without all that tedious prep work. Love that analogy. And this talk highlights a point that I think is super relevant, especially if you're newer to coding. Because ABP is designed with best practices baked in. It kind of nudges you toward writing better code, even if you're not a super experienced developer yet.
Yeah, it's like having training wheels that gradually come off as you get more comfortable.
I like that.
And that's where the story of 3S Studio comes in. This is a company that builds its own software products, but also takes on client projects. So they've seen a lot of different challenges.
Yeah, real-world experience. They've got skin in the game, which we'd love to see.
And what's interesting about Mihai, the co-founder we'll hear from, is that he started as a developer himself, focused on the front end, the part of the software users actually see and interact with.
Okay, so he gets both sides of the equation, the developer experience and what makes a product successful from a business point of view.
Exactly.
So why did 3S Studio choose ABP in the first place? I mean, obviously the time-saving features are a huge draw, but they highlighted something else that was a big win for them. The impact of ABP on their code quality and consistency, especially with newer developers on the team.
Because here's the thing, right? When you have a framework that encourages or really almost enforces good architectural practices, it means everyone's speaking the same language, metaphorically speaking.
Right, right.
The code base is cleaner, more organized, and ultimately that leads to fewer errors and it speeds up development even more.
And think about that impact on a business like 3S Studio. If their code is more reliable, their products are more stable, they can get new features out to their customers faster. That's huge. It's a competitive edge.
Absolutely. It allows developers to really sink their teeth into the creative, problem-solving parts of building software rather than getting bogged down in the nitty-gritty.
And speaking of creative problem solving, let's talk about what 3S Studio is building with ABP Framework, because this is where things get really interesting. We're about to dive into the world of electric vehicles. Okay, so get this, 3S Studio is taking this whole EV thing seriously, right? They're building a new product, Behavior Bridge, and it's all about electric vehicle charging. But here's the thing, it's not just another charging station network.
Right, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, are they? They're focusing on optimizing what's already out there.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Behavior Bridge is designed for companies that already have charging networks in place.
Gotcha.
It's a software solution. You could think of it kind of like a plugin that adds a whole other level of functionality on top of what those networks already offer.
And this is where it got really interesting for me. They're talking about things like gamification, but for EV charging.
Yeah, gamification.
Gamification. I mean, come on, tell me more about that.
It's actually pretty clever when you stop and think about it. One of the big challenges with EV charging from a grid perspective is managing the load, right? Especially during peak hours. So Behavior Bridge uses gamification to encourage people to charge their cars at off-peak times when it's less strain on the grid.
So instead of just plugging in your car when you get home from work, you might earn points or badges or even discounts for charging it like 2 in the morning or something.
Exactly.
You're turning a chore into a game.
Right.
I can see how that would appeal to people.
It's about making it more engaging, right? And for the charging companies themselves, well, it helps them balance demand and potentially cut down on their energy costs. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win situation.
Right. It's like suddenly software is solving a really practical problem in the real world. I love that. Okay, but building something like Behavior Bridge has got to come with its own challenges from a technical standpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you're talking about serving all these different clients,
Yeah.
each with their own data, their own users. How do you even manage that?
And that's where this concept of multi-tenancy comes in. And it's something that ABP framework is really well suited for.
Okay, break that down for me. What is multi-tenancy?
Okay, so imagine you have an apartment building, right?
Okay.
That's your software. But it's divided up into these separate apartments, each with its own key, its own occupants. Those apartments, those are like your different clients using Behavior Bridge.
So each client is like his own self-contained unit within the larger system.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of multi-tenancy.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Instead of building a completely separate system for every single client they work with, 3S Studio can leverage the multi-tenancy features built right into ABP framework to create these like isolated environments, but within their software.
So it's all about efficiency. It's
Yeah.
about scalability. They can serve a ton of clients with different needs, different data, all within a single unified system. That's powerful.
It really is.
And, it goes back to what we were talking about before with Mihai's background. I mean, he's been a developer, and now he's leading a company. He gets how something like ABP framework doesn't just speed up development, but can actually impact a business's success.
Yeah, and later in the talk, he actually offers some advice for developers who might be thinking, ABP framework. This sounds interesting, but it also sounds a little intimidating.
A little daunting. Yeah, I can see that.
Right, it can seem like a lot to wrap your head around, but he really emphasizes that the learning curve isn't as steep as you might think, especially if you've got the right support.
He's big on mentorship and community, right? Which we love here at the Deep Dive.
Absolutely. Having someone who's been there, done that, to guide you, answer questions, share their experiences.
It makes a huge difference.
Oh, it's invaluable. It's like having a map and a compass when you're exploring a new territory. You might find your way eventually, but those tools are going to save you a lot of time and frustration.
100%. So the takeaway here is, if you're intrigued by ABP framework, don't be scared to jump in. Reach out, join the community, learn from others.
Because what we're seeing here is actually bigger than just ABP framework. It's a shift in how we think about building software in general.
And that's what excites me. This whole deep dive into ABP framework has been eye-opening. It's not just for .NET developers. It's about how these tools, these frameworks, can really change the game for anyone involved in building software. It's easy to get caught up in all the technical details, but what gets me really excited about ABP framework and these kinds of tools in general is how they can really transform businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it all comes back to working smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly. And all those benefits we've been talking about, they translate directly to a company's bottom line.
Except,
Faster development cycles mean you get new products and features out to market faster ahead of the competition.
right.
And more stable software, well, that means you have happier customers because they're not running into bugs all the time, and you're spending less time and money on fixing things.
It's huge. I mean, think about it these days. Everyone's trying to attract and retain talented developers, right?
Oh, tell me about it. It's a tough market out there.
But if you can offer developers a place where they're empowered by tools like ABP, where they can focus on the really interesting, challenging parts of building software, instead of getting bogged down in the repetitive stuff.
You're going to attract the best of the best because they want to be challenged. They want to be working with cutting-edge tools.
So you're giving them superpowers.
Exactly. They can achieve more in less time, and the quality of their work is going to be better because they're not stressed and bogged down.
It's a win-win for everyone involved. And let's not forget about the financial side of things either.
Absolutely not.
When you're spending less time on those fundamental development tasks, it frees up more resources, more time, more money for innovation and growth.
Right, and that's where things get really exciting.
It does.
Suddenly, companies can invest in exploring new markets, improving their existing products, or even just giving back to their employees and communities.
It's like this whole deep dive has really hammered home this idea of leverage, right?
Yeah.
Using the right tools to multiply your efforts and ultimately achieve bigger and better things.
It's about opening up possibilities for the developers who are building the software, for the businesses that are using it, and ultimately for the end users who benefit from it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, before we wrap up, we always like to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder, a little food for thought.
I like it.
We spent this whole episode diving deep into ABP framework. which is tailored for building .NET applications. But what if we zoomed out a bit?
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What other industries, what other fields could benefit from this kind of pre-built, best practice-driven approach to, well, anything, really?
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question.
It is.
Well, healthcare comes to mind immediately. Imagine if we had frameworks that help streamline the development of new medical devices or even personalized treatment plans.
Oh, that's a great one. What about education? We could have frameworks for creating those really immersive, interactive learning experiences that are tailored to each individual student's needs.
Right. It's almost like we're shifting from a mindset of building everything from scratch to a mindset of assembling and customizing existing components.
And that kind of shift, that could unlock some incredible progress across all sorts of industries and fields.
Absolutely. We're breaking down these complex problems into smaller, more manageable pieces, and then we're giving people the tools to put those pieces back together in really creative and innovative ways.
It's an exciting time to be a builder, a creator, a problem solver, no matter what field you're in. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.